Okay guys, so let's start. What we want to do today is try to set up the application from ground up to talk about the backend and yeah, majorly on the backend, how we get everything started or starting. Because right now we now have direct connection to the backend, or we've been doing some form of authentication. So and before you or while you authenticate, you will need to test all these things you are doing. So just, for starters, let me close quite a number of things here. Now I created this section. I talked about REST API, or rather making a test API call. I could as well use Postman or use these Thunder clients here. But like I said, I like expressing stuff here so that you get to see what's going on. So this is supposed to be a server. This is our backend. By the way, you know our front end is using 3000. That's your front end. So your front end is also a server. However, is using it to run Node.js on the front end. So most times people confuse this. I think that's another confusion. And that's why you see that people do, that's where the full stack application comes into play, whereby your JavaScript is running in the front end and also in the back end. So your npm that you run actually does both things. So there's a thin line between front end and back end. What this one is doing is giving you a hard line. You're obviously seeing it that, hey, this is a back end and the other one is a front end. So most times people confuse the front end server, or the fact that you have npm running the front end automatically is the back end. It's not the back end. So what that just does is that it allows you to run npm, all those packages and what have you. Okay, having said that, we've been introducing Golang. We introduced Golang some time back and we are about to start using it. So if you try to execute this endpoint, obviously it won't go because we don't have anything set on this port, or we've not started the server for this port. So if we try to do this, it will even give us a connection error kind of. So what I want to do now is to kind of simulate how to start your server for the backend. Now there are quite a lot of things we tried to set up when we started the backend journey in Go. I did mention things like, let's go into the code. I mentioned the Gene. The Gene is the framework for running our REST API. I also talk about Swagger. The Swagger thing gave us some tough time, but it's now resolved. Apparently, what was wrong with the Swagger was that we're using an old version of Swagger, so it couldn't load the file. If you guys remember, we had issue with our Swagger, but now it's fixed, and I'm going to show you, to you guys, and then you see how it works. And finally, I installed Air. Air was the way for us to start our server. By the way, to start your server is just to call the main.go. Just say go run this, and then it will run it for you, and then it will go. But the problem with running Go like that is that when you make changes to your code, it does not recompile it, right? Because when you are in a development mode, you want to be making alterations, you want to be making changes. So you need an environment that is very reactive and be able to adapt. They call that hot reload. Then make those changes for you. So I mentioned three things now. Let's start with documentation. That's the Swagger. So to run your Swagger, you do swag ini. Unfortunately, there are a lot of things that are installed that are made up of this. So you might need to install Swagger the proper way. Like if you call these parts, for example, you need to install this. And if you have any error running Swag, well, I think if you have all these things installed, like if you get the GoSum is a way for it to check what version that you are running, what are the dependencies on what you have in your Go mode. Your Go mode is all the requirements, all the packages you need. Remember, this also looks like your package.json in JavaScript. So this is something like that. And your package.json, remember that you have like two sections. You have the package lock and also the package JSON thing. So these two things that you're seeing here is working something like this. Those two things that you have. So this part, most time you don't touch it. Just the same thing with the package lock. you don't also touch this part as well, but we won't go into this for now. The same thing, we won't look at the sum. Okay, so while I was talking about the Swagger, I mentioned that one of the issue was that it was running an old version, so I had to update it, and the thing got working. Let's move on and then see what we need to do in order to have our Swagger running. So we need to be inside our backend. So we do cd backend, and then we do our swag ini. So that one does this. What the Swagger initialization does is that it reads through your code, and whatever it is that you've done here in terms of annotation, documentation, it recompiles it and generates a doc. This guy run on the fly. So those things, if you've made an adjustment, you come here to provide new details, you need to go and run this again. Every time you do that, you run this, right? That's just part of the whole thing. You have to run swag.go if you make a new update. Now notice what it is saying. It generated a swag document, it generated the general API information search directory, all the stuff that we have in the code. It went ahead to create all these things, and then you have your doc. Good. That is required. So if you've not run that, it will kind of give you an issue. That is one step. Now the next one is for you to obviously run your server, start your server. I did mention Air. By now, if you don't have Air installed, go and install it. The first video I did mention how Air is, how you can run Air. So I assume that you have Air on your system now. You just type Air, and what Air does is that it just starts the server for you. It goes, this is the guy built with Go 1.25, blah blah blah. You have your Air starting. What the guy does is that he literally, Air is the host reload thing, but the Air is running our Gene. Our Gene is our framework that we're using for REST API, and it's not just only REST API, it does a lot of things. So these are the endpoints that it has seen that you created. So it's just trying to map everything and get ready for you. So you can see that we're now listening and serving HTTP on port 9090. So this port is good to go. We've successfully started our backend. Okay, now one of the ways for you to test what's going on is for you to hit the backend with a request, and once you make your request, you will see that it's going to be responding if everything is all right. So the first thing I want to do is to log in. There are quite a lot of endpoints that we can call, but since this one is waiting here, we can as well utilize it. Now this extension is, well, I won't say it's a programming environment as well, but it's a way for you to write your request in such a way that you could program it. So if I do say send request now unfortunately, well, it's saying that we need to use this method, cookie not define host. So it's as if that maybe this is what you guys are talking about and the error that you guys are saying. However, I will change this to the IP, because I'll change this to the IP to see if that will fix the issue. So it said we need to use 192.168.1.9, and then let's give it a try. Okay, apparently that worked. So let me explain what is going on here. So I will explain what is going on there for you to get. But before I explain it, so whenever you make a request, it goes like so, right? This is what you see. So as in, this is what is happening in the server, backend server, just to show that your request went through. Also the time it took, this is 64 milliseconds for the login to actually happen. This one is 56 milliseconds, the host calling it, and also the endpoint that was executed. So that's your Gene server working. Now this is the result of our execution that we posted. Now, when we make a request, we are using cookies, right? We can use several methods. You can use authentication bearer token. There are several methods in which you can use any method to use to log in, guys. So this is just what I've decided to use. for this our method to set the whole thing inside cookies, to use cookies to hold and make sure that the user is active. Now what I did is, when you log in, I'm setting the cookie. So the reason why I gave that first error was because the domain does not match the person that is requesting it. The domain does not match the person that is requesting it. So my system is mapped to 192.168.1.9, and these are things you need to also check in your own system. Is this your IP? If this is not your IP, you need to check. I think this is my own local IP. That's why it is like this. Now, if you want to check that or see what's going on, you have to go to the environment variable. And all these, we define these things together. So number one, this can be anything. This is just what is using to hash, to create a very unique secret key. These are a long story. Now, this is my database configuration, right? So this also, that's that. The next one is authentication token settings, to know how the token will expire, how many times you should refresh. This one means that after 30 days, the token needs to refresh, meaning you need to re-log in. Then refresh token name, what name should it be called? You can see that this one is the same thing that is saying here. Refresh token is equal to so. And that's because that's what I call it here. Then cookie domain, do you see? So it means this domain is what is responsible for using it. So if, let's say, in the future we call it asset gear, or we call this asset gear.app, so it means asset gear.app is the one that can consume this app. No other section. You can't make a request from another app into this domain to execute or to use the resources on this backend. That's what that means. So remember that this is our environment variable, and it's supposed to be, for our development. The one for live, we also handle live settings. All the configuration that's supposed to be for live, we will set down, or that will be set, and then that will be good to go. Now the mode here, even though I've not started using it, is to detect and say, oh, this configuration is for live or is for production. Then app URL supposed to be the front end part. This is supposed to be the front end part, because the backend needs to know who is calling it, right? What IP is calling it. That's where this one is for. And then you see where I use this in the backend code. So let's look at let's see if there's anything so special here about the homepage. You've seen this code many times, and this should be fairly easy. Now this allow origins. This allow origins is who is allowed to access the backend, and that's where this one comes to play. So it is only this guy that can access the backend. So your issue might be coming from this IP. 192.168.1 is a local network IP. So if you run your dev stuff in the front end, let's quickly open to front end. Since we are talking about front end now, let's quickly open that front end. See the front end. Now, if you run npm run dev, what do you see here? This is very important. What do you see here? So I did mention, we've talked about this, that you should pick this one. This is the IP that you will use. And this is your local, network IP. Most times your IP does not change on your system, right? So for you, it might be different. For me, this is what I'm seeing. This is what in my own system. So the reason why we're not using localhost is because I want to run it on my Android device. Android device does not recognize localhost. It recognizes IP. It is desktop system that uses localhost. So all these other devices does not recognize things like this. Okay. Moving on down, that's why I was using these numbers and not localhost. But this localhost is internal connection. Who is using this localhost is your app, your backend that is using this localhost, not the network of the mobile device. So this localhost is, is being executed from Golang, not from the environment, not from the device or your desktop. It's Golang that is executing, and this is fine, as the case may be. Okay, moving on, let's go back to the front end, the back end, and see where we're talking to. We're in the main.go, and trying to explain what's happening here. So these things might be the issues where you could not start the system. I think I've over-engineered the whole thing. Okay, so once those ones are solved, I think you guys should have a green light and you should be able to go. At some point, we had issues here, and that's in the previous class, which I was able to resolve. Base class and what have you. I was able to resolve all that, and we had this. Now let's make use of, so we've been able to log in. Let's do other things like work order and work order type, because I know that I've done. Go ahead, please. There are several reasons why. Do you use this section I mentioned? This have you changed all these things? Is this what is on your system? 192.168.1.9. Is that what's on your system? And that's what I said, that you have to go and change it on this part. Do you understand? Because that's what I just said. Now you have to change it because everything is tied to this on my own system. Now on your system, you have to change it. I actually mentioned it several times when we're talking about this session. You have to use your own. This is my own system, so you have to use your own. And normally we're not supposed to be pushing the environment variable, because the environment is local to you, and this is your development machine. The development machine is unique to you, so this has to be your own connection. I hammered down on this severally, so this is what is causing the issue. And apart from that, when you get stuck in something like this is where it's possible that you guys also tried it, but most times the first thing I get to do is to get to debug mode and get to see what's happening at the back end. Like try to figure out what's happening, when you try to log in, what error did it spill out from the system and what have you. So it's important to also have those documented, or have that in the check on what you are doing. Okay, let's move on. So I wanted to look at other parts, how you could call other sections, because you need to also be able to do things like this from your own end, instead of because you need to see your results. You need to get what it is that you are pulling. So let me show you what I mean by that. You need to be able to do something like this and get results. That's called your normal request. So let's go ahead and see how we can typically make endpoint call. So this is an example. So if you do something like this, you should be able to have a call. Now you can see that I did a call. This is a cookie set, so you have to use cookie like this, refresh token, and pass the cookie information there. Now how do you get the cookie information? When you log in like this, when you log in with your details, the system sets cookies. You get cookies like this, and this one you can copy this and have it inside here. And by the way, I can get this information. I think, do I want to try that now? This information that was sent here, I can hold it inside a variable and make use of it. So let me show you what I mean by that. Even though this is now going out of what we are supposed to do, but just show you the power of this REST guy, how you can use it to do quite a lot of things. So let me use this one. So let me show you what I'm doing. So there's this project, and I also want to go to the REST part where I have the REST section. I have a folder for endpoints, for calling endpoints. So this is what I do. Now you can actually collect when you try to log in, right? You can see the way I use the variable. You can collect any information that has been dumped here. You can collect it inside here and say, hold all this information, call it, let's say, because anytime you send the information here, you are getting all these results out. So I can say, something, I just thought about something. I don't know if it will work, but let me try it and say, I call it token. Now, when I call it token now, I should be able to use that token somewhere. I should be able to use the results here. So I want to use the results inside here. So let me try if it will work. Now, how do I use the results? Let me first comment this one out. I'm supposed to be able to do cookie, and I then do token dot request body headers. Is there anything like headers? Body. So now let me see where this one is. So this is header, yes. So I should be going to header and then cookie. Okay, let me see if it will response headers. So let me try cookie. If it will work, ideally this is supposed to dump whatever is inside this token, because you can browse through those parts and get your information out. But of course, I'm not sure if it will work because I've not tried this before, but let me try it. So if I send that information, so I'm waiting for it. If there's any information, it will either tell me or not. So apparently it's kind of work. Are you kidding me? So this is how you know if it worked or not. Let me show you how you know if it worked. So if I run except it knows my cookie already. So if I run the first one, so the first one set a cookie, that's this one here. It set a cookie to be OUL like this. So it's a cookie there. Remember, notice that I did not pass any cookie here. Then if I send this, it ingests that cookie inside there and then gives me this. So I don't think it's working now. Let me remove this section. Let me send it again. Let me see what it says. So we're waiting for the results because it's still loading here. So let me just off it and resend it to see if it will give us any message. So I think it's responding. So the cookie is loading by itself. By the way, this is also a browser, so it must have saved the cookie somewhere so it can reuse it. We don't even need to send the cookie along. As long as we've logged them before, we're good to go. So another way to see what is going on is, let's even try and log out. So log out is also a post. Okay, log out is also a post. So let's log out and see what happened. So if I come to this one, let me make logout the second thing there. So remove this one. This is not necessary. This is not necessary. So logout does not need any data to log out. It just logs you out because it knows who you are already. So let's see what happened. So if I send logout information, it returned successful. Let's now see if we can call this part again to get work order, because work order requires an active login. If it allows us, it means there's a lot of work for me. Good, it didn't allow us. So it said that I'm missing refresh token. right? But it still returns some funny character. Okay, so what it returned is actually a structure. Okay, it still returned data, which is not good, but it was able to give us that there's an error, right? So I know what happened here. I know what happened. So it returns that there is an error, but it did not terminate. It still went ahead to generate the result. So the cookie thing is working, but if we log in now, you will notice that it won't complain again. So now we've logged in, we can go back and now say, let's generate work order. So it will not complain because now it now has a cookie set and then it can give us our results. So this is working. Let's log out and fix that issue. Then we'll move on to something else. So if we go to here, the problem is coming from where we are doing authentication required. Remember that before, when anything we've said here should always require authentication. So if we go to this code, we'll see where the issue is coming from. This is where we say that it should do this, missing refresh token. It was supposed to stop. So we say return. It was supposed to stop the action, not just return. So how do you stop is by doing abort. So here we're not supposed to stop. We're supposed to abort, C abort. So this will actually, terminate the operation. So every time there's an error, this is not an error. Is this an error? If error. I'm also looking for other section. This is only when it should go in. So this one is also an error. So you should always abort. This is also an error. This is also an error. Which other one is also an error? Yep, we are done with capturing all the error. So the purpose of us now, you can see that the Golang is compiling again and then ready for us to serve. If we didn't have air in place, you have to go and close your server and rerun it again, which will, be very, very not very funny to run every time. Let me split our server and have this on this other side. Why this always remove this part for me? Okay, that's brought it for me. So let's give it a try again. So let's log out. We're logged out. Wait. It does the same thing again for us. So there's a lot of cleanup we need to do on our API. So the logout is requiring authentication, which does not make sense. If you log out. So the logout is asking no, because now this is what is happening on logout. Missing refresh token, error true, message successful data. So it's combining two things. So we are not aborting. So it's also still calling something that we need to go and check. So this one is validate token. Let me see what's happening here. So we need to abort all these things. They are not aborting, but I will not do that in this session. So let's go ahead and do our test and then move on. So we assume that login logs in. This one is working, and then we can see the data whenever we need it because we are logged in. Now let's log out. Our logout worked well, but if we click logout 2 times, that's where we have that funny interface. So now let's try to access data. If you try to access data, it will say missing refresh token, so it won't go, which is all right. So if we do, this one will still not go because we fixed this. But if you try to do logout again, that's when you need to do this one as well. But even though it's not allowing you to see data, that needs to be cleaned up. Okay, now is there a database one? Is there go? Yes, there is. Yes, there is. Didn't I share that with you? Okay, so I think that is where the problem is. Okay, so I'm gonna show you the table now. Why didn't I share that table? That's very funny. Okay, so I've shared the table with you guys, so you guys can add that table. Okay, now that is that. I think that's a big one. That's a big one. Okay, so let's go to the UI. At least we've done quite a lot of Golang. So let's see what we have on the front end part, if we can add one or two things today. So let me open the mobile interface section. There's quite a lot of setup I would like to do, but not now. So what I want to add is, or rather look at, is starting up, how to start up. Like I told you guys should not worry about doing this thing though. It's going to it's going to take you some time to run. So I just do that, and then what it does is that it generates this stuff for me, automatically builds it, and I had to go through a lot of tests so that it can appear the way it appears, and so that I can make modification. While adjusting, you can be seeing the results that you are seeing. So that takes a lot of setup, but we never can tell. It can take you, all this icon, we're going to change it over time. Now I thought we started the server. Okay, let's check it again. Did I restart it? So let me off it again. So that's the disadvantage of using this method. This is using web view. We're not using React Native. This is web view. So if we're using React Native, you have a different experience. It will be different experience, yeah. Let's just put it like that. Okay, so I've done quite some updates on the system. Yes, on the work order section. I don't think I mentioned it the last time, or maybe if you guys watched it, at some point I had to just go mute and just start coding it directly. Now what I've done is that I mentioned that there will be some things that will be fixed. Let's go to the work order. So we're done with the backend right now. So if you go to work order, pages, yeah, work order. So on this work order section, I think I won't be needing this bottom again for now. Now, so I did this. Instead of fetching it from the backend, I just kept it because it won't change, literally, kind of, it won't change. So I did this fixed. Then even though we're not using this one yet, but I just left it there. There's still quite a lot of stuff to do on the interface. Trust me, we still need to do some stuff on the interface. But let's just start getting the whole stuff going gradually. So what I did was to create a use what's the word? Use work order, right? Why is it called use? Okay, use work order, like so. And this one is to get the type of work order, or rather work order objects, so to say. So the reason why I'm showing you this thing is to also help you to build your approach to other parts of the system. For example, when you get to assets, use this approach, right? So let's explain what is going on here. So I use hook to get work order information, right? Then the type is here. Now, what do I mean by that? I use hook. So this one is fairly easy. Let's go to this one here. So use work order has some certain parameters. You can get all the work orders in the entire system, which shouldn't be. We'll get to this one later. So you can get a particular work order, but I'm not calling that particular hook at the moment, or the function at the moment. So if you go to look at it now, these are the things that is available. You can get a particular work order. This is not just type, this is getting work order. If you want to get one work order, this is a loading, error, refresh, right? These are things that you can get in it. And you can also do filter. I'll show you how to do filter. So okay, if you go to use work order, right, there are different things that is going on here. Different thing is going on here at the same time. But the first one is the one that is kind of confusing, right? So we can filter by work order or by work order itself. Let me repeat that again. We can filter by work order class. The work order class is this one on top, or by the work order itself. So you need to we found a way to decide on which one is being supplied by to the user. So for here, the first thing that is being supplied by the user is work order class, which is what we determine to say, oh, if this is 0, show all, else, show the one that has been provided, which is any of this one that has been selected. Okay, so if eventually we have a work order, you should have a static work order here. Now by default, obviously we won't have all the work orders loaded here. We can just have the first 20. We'll implement pagination later, but ideally when you fetch record, it will be fixed, maybe 20 and things like that. Then getting next, that will be handled later. But just watch this space, because whatever you are doing, this space will allow you to replicate whatever you are doing on the other part of the system, like assets and what have you. Now we will need to maintain a state on the whole hook, like when the hook is busy, that's the loading, and when we stumble on an error, that's when we'll have these two guys here, right, to maintain the state of what's going on. So here we are making a call to the system. So if it's a work order, right, there's something it needs to do. I mean, if it's a particular one is doing, you just call it. So we are checking what is going on here. If we are using work class, use this endpoint. Else, use this endpoint. By the way, we will be filtering with so many parameters, not just work class. We'll be filtering with departments and what have you. So we'll be able to pass whatever it is we'll be able to enter the things we are filtering by. We might need to make the hook more extensive so that it will be easier to use, right? Because these guys can build so fast. So currently it's only two things I'm doing now. We are getting the work order by type, right? Or getting all work orders. So if you say work orders like this, you're not adding any parts to it. It gives you everything. By the time you start filtering, you start having something like this. Like I just said, we'll be able to you should be able to start by department units and what have you. So many kind of parameter. So you should be able to just one button click filter to, close results. So we also spent some time here the last time. I think this one took us so many times to figure out, right? The way the data will look when it's coming back. So one of the major things is this API response, which was manually, when I mean manually created, is something we created. All our report or all our output looks like this: message, data, and error. Remember, this is coming from Golang. It's gonna look like this. And when it looks like this, this one is our data that can now contain, other things that we said. And that's why we have this one inside here, work order. We've already dealt with this in previous video. So this is TypeScript, and the purpose of doing things like this is so that you can be able to, go in and pick the field. When a field change, it reduces error in your code and what have you. So now we are setting the work order. We are safe and know that data.data is what? Is work order. We are safe and we know that. So whatever data that is coming here is an array. If we go to Golang, you will go and see that you know, it's also programmed like that. So if we go to backend, we go to, let's jump to main and go to work orders. So if you jump to work orders, and then you see that we are returning array of work orders, right? This is cool. If you come here, these are all the things you're returning. We make sure that we map all these things. So this is the manual part. So the manual part is to make sure that this guy, all these things here, is typed correctly in your front end as well. You need to map it. So if you make a change here, you need to go and map it in your front end. So let's see what the front end did. If we go back to this, this is the use of the work order. This is it here. This is the object, the type /type. So if you go, you will see that I try as much as possible to map it. So what I did was to copy and paste and told the AI to help me so that, you know, I don't miss anything out. So this is what it did. And when you are using the object, you can easily, you know, match what it is you want to match. So this one is also another thing that I got error from, but I think this is resolved like so. That's if there's a message, you use the message. If there's no message, you use that. Remember that we have the AI response, so we have access to do come to think about it, this message here is the message from this Axios error, because that one is in line there. But well, I won't talk too much on it because it's supposed to be like this: data dot message msg. Wait, so we're supposed to be able to go to, is it request response dot data dot yeah, I don't know if you guys understand what I just did, but this is what I'm trying to, this is what I just figured out. Let me keep it, let me copy it so that you understand. Yeah, let me try and explain what I just did here. So if I go back to what code, by the way, you guys know that AI is the one generating most of this code for me, right? You know, just to bootstrap, and you're not supposed to, you know, do stuff blindly. Even though AI is generating stuff for you, you also need to use your own expertise well, and also put the right thing in order. Now, when you make a request to the backend, whatever error occurs or whatever error that the system trigger is what is going to sit here. If I inspect elements and I make a request, this is an error fabricated by the server. Let's go to Golang. So if there's an error from Golang, like so, I'm trying to find where I shoot out an error. Yes, good. The error that is sent is not found error, standard error, like 404 error. Most times that error is what shows in here, but the one that I customized, I put inside AI response, will show fault where? We show fault here, because this is my own endpoints or my own custom code. So this data is from this one now, because this guy knows that the response is what I've put inside here. So even other things can come. You can see the three things that will confirm. The reason why these three guys are showing is because we say that this guy should be used inside of this. So let's go, let's just leave what it is there. I just had to explain that part. Okay, moving on. We then are able to, this just to do auto fetching, you know, load on fetch. Yeah, that's what's that called again? Callback. Use callback. Is it use effect? It's supposed to be use effect. Why is it using use callback on Asabi? So I have this one set this way. That's to fetch work orders. Now, if I want to fetch one work order, just one. So this is just to fetch one, and this is the endpoint, and this is the endpoint I'm calling. So you can see tally, and then it does the whole thing for me. Notice that I'm using this API thing that I created, right? That way it makes sure that it pass, you know, all those stuffs that it needs to pass inside. Then once the data comes back, set it to work order. Remember that this one is holding our work order information. The T, the type is work order. So we are good to go. The same thing I did up there, I can also replicate that there. Okay, this is use effects I was talking about. Okay, now those are just the two things we are doing. While we are doing that, we are setting, oh, if it's loading and if it's not loading, if it has error, show the error and what have you. Okay, so that is just for these parts. Like I said, I will implement pagination, not now. I think the next thing we will do, the next class, I will implement pagination, right? I don't think we're going to do much today again. Now, let me also show you the difference I've done. So you guys have seen the loading effects. I need to do quite a lot of corrections. Like every time I come back, it should not load again. So I want you to take notes or pick a clue from what I'm doing when you're doing your own assets page. As you're doing your assets page, of course, you can also go ahead and implement some things here, because I won't be working on this code actively. I will be doing other things. So you are not restricted from working on this. You can also work on it as well. Yeah, so there's just some few things I've noticed that should be corrected. Like I mentioned, going to a particular page, if I go back, it should not load again, and that has to do with this section here. It should not load every time I come back. It should not load, right? So I also try to deal with the loading effect, which I think I've done. Like you saw the blur effect, this blur effect, I like that blur effect. So let me show you what happened there. The reason why I'm also mentioning all this, so that you can implement, you see all the components I've created, and then you can try and use them. Not something so crazy, just few things I've just done. So I call this one, where's the component? I called it loading. So this is what does the loading thing, and then you see where it's being used, how it's being used. So if I come to this part, so it tries to blur the section that is saying. I try to make it full page, but it's not working. So you can see the effect that is given. So I like this effect, because remember that we're using, this is not a mobile application, or rather this is not what's the word now, it's not React Native. So you just make do with what you have to get that effect that you want to get. The reason why that loading effect is not there is actually down in the page. So, but I'm not worrying. If it's a small page, you will see the loading effect in the show, but at least the blur sign gives it that loading effect that the page is coming. So, and I can do other things while I'm waiting for that page to load. Okay, so another thing, you can see that it's not maintaining the state. When you go back and come back, it's loading again from beginning. You should be able to maintain that state of where it is. So notice this one is, you can see that the name is not showing, the details is not showing here, because it's going to fetch the information, and once it has the information, it saves it in that part. So I like the blur thing. And the blur thing is done by this guy, the loading effect. I like the blur stuff, and the reason why it's taking time is because we delayed it. So that's the purpose of that delay. Now let me explain what is happening. Let me just go and show you the usage instead of trying to explain the whole thing. Let me show you how I used it. So it's called, I need to even rename it, instead of me calling it loading, it's called overlay loader. So if you go to, let's look at it in profile, how it was used in profile. So it's pretty simple. Your profile page, what it does is supposed to just get the user information. I'm using user authentication to get the user information. This is the user. So this one now holds the information. So we did this one of the classes, right? And this is just to show if it's loading, or rather, because when you are getting the user, actually you are setting this loading. We're also supposed to set error as well, because there might be error, so that you can report the error back to the user. So there should also be error kind of, so that you report error back to the user if there is any, which, okay, this is something else. Now, how does the loading stuff works? The loading stuff works by just doing this. Overlay, show loading, and then full screen. If you want it to be a full screen thing. If you want it to be a partial, yeah, you put it there. Okay. So, and then you don't need to do any other if condition or anything. That's the good thing about the, or interesting thing about the overlay. So you don't need to go and say if this, if that. Just leave the rest. The rest will sort themselves out, right? The rest will sort. You will notice that you won't see any other conditional statement in this place. So let's go and look at it in work order as well, how it's found itself in work order. So in work order section, which is a very interesting part, let's see how it starts showing. Now, of course, I want to make sure that error is highlighted. So I put the error stuff there. Now for the work order, let me minimize all this so that you see where it starts showing its own. So this part has to do with the, this is where the work order starts listing. You just put the overlay is loading and that's all. It will take care of the rest. So there's no need for conditional is overlaying or something. Just let me even put this one at the top. Let me see what happened. Why is it at the bottom? That's the wrong place, but I just want to put it here to see what happens. Okay, so putting it there, notice that it blocks everything. I didn't want it to block everything. I want it to just, you know, well, that can be a thing, but I don't want it to block everything. That's why I put it inside there. So this section. So you can see that it's capturing here. Let me put it after there. So let me return it to the original place. Okay, so that's it. This is where it is. Now, what else do I want to showcase? I think that's what I want to showcase for today. So apparently, I'm sure now you guys should be able to log in to the system. Sorry about the database thing. I thought I shared the database or the table to you guys. Sorry about that. So I guess, well, majorly, that's one of the reasons why it couldn't go in. So do you guys have any question? Okay, go ahead. And well, I don't know what to say about that. So you have to check very well to make sure that you are connected to the same server you're working on. Are you on the same server? Because you understand, are you on the same database? Maybe it's another database is trying to connect to. Make sure it's the right database. Okay, so let's look at it. We'll look at it quickly. We'll look at it when we are rounding up. We'll look at when we are rounding up. So is there another question apart from that? So prepare to share your screen then. Prepare to share your screen so that I can take a look at it. So let me change this back to, let me change this back to 0. Okay, just hold on. Okay, hold. Okay, hold on. Let me check what's going on. So when you have internet server error, refresh token. So go to your database. Let me look at my database. Go back to Golang. Go back to Golang. So go to now insert into this token. I'm reading the bottom part of your screenshot. I want to see what's going on there. So okay. Another thing we can do is to create stable if not existing. But I'm trying to see. Let me see your connection. Let me see your connection string. You can close this section. Close this one. No, just hold on. I'm trying to see what's going on. Let me see. Refresh token. Are you pulling the recent update? Are you on the 15th? Let me see those 5 changes that is done. Go back. Local changes 5, yes. Okay, change that to 6. Okay, let me see the. Okay. Now go back to MySQL. What about the other SQL? Do you have another SQL? Because I don't trust this. Yeah, open that one. Okay, refresh token. Go to your connection. Go to new connection. Try to set up a new connection. Or just say Control N. Not from there, not from there. Just say Control N. Don't connect yet. Where? How do you connect? You didn't save any connection. Okay, you normally type it. Okay, I'm trying to see. Go back. Close this one. Close this window. Don't worry. Don't connect. Close the window. Go to table info. Okay, I've seen the well, I hope that's the error. Well, is it an error? Because I've noticed it in everything. So it looks as if there's okay, it's not it, but let's just be sure. Check if there's extra space. Yeah, I know that's not it. But check, try to rename the. It's not it. It's available in everything. But it's possible. Just try and rename it on the left hand side. Try and rename it. Okay, there's no space there. So what you do is put underscore. So remove the. I wanted to even say put underscore in the front and put underscore at the back. That's what I wanted to even say. So run the code and let's see. No, typing it in this thing is might be the one. So I wanted to say put space in the front, put at the back. I mean put underscore in the front, put underscore at the back, then rename it again. But go ahead and let's see what to say. And it has sorted it up. Okay. The same thing happens to them. The same thing has happened to that because yeah, so apparently I think copying and paste as alter, the structure of the code, fonts moving and everything like that. So you can try and check that. So that should fix it. So yeah. Okay, so I think that is all for the time being. We are still running way behind schedule on this mobile app. There's quite a lot of things to be done. So thank God, what task are you working on? Or we'll take that offline. We'll talk about it offline, don't worry. We'll talk about it offline. So, but what I'm expecting to see, I've seen the assets, right? So you need to also, assets will have locations, obviously. They will also have this status. It's a good status to have, either they are offline or online. I like the pointing stuff to say that you can click to get more information. It means we need to put something like that here as well. But I need to rework this other section to give that vibe. Like I said, majorly what I do here is what will give you the stuff to work in also other parts of the system. Okay, no problem. Okay, so in the absence of no more questions, I think we'll call it a night for today. Good night.